Content presented in Cheshire Corners is for educational and informational purposes only. Please consult a legal professional if you have any questions or concerns about the content of this disclaimer, this series, or the legal implications surrounding psychedelic substances in your jurisdiction.
Welcome to Cheshire Corners. My name is Rita Tsalyuk, and we have a guest here in studio, so let's trip through the looking glass. But it's interesting what RFK Jr. are going to do, because he's into it.
We'll see. I had the pleasure, I met him 12 years ago because I was involved in some environmental stuff, and he's very big about protecting our water and parks and stuff like that. We'll see. I'm encouraged, but you know, we're so bought by the pharmaceutical industry, and they have such big, deep pockets. I don't see them easily allowing cures or something that is going to prevent them from prescribing or dispensing those medications.
I have no questions. I wasn't surprised that FDA denied MDMA, because you cannot fit circle into or square in a round hole.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
They're just not looking from the same position. Yeah, they're like, you have to prove. You cannot tell people, when Hippocrates said that the doctor is a strong person who makes patient to believe that patient is healthy. So if you're taking that part out of it, placebo part out of it,
Yeah.
why would you? You know, they say you have to take placebo out of it. Why would you? But you don't know. You need to figure out. You need to separate it. How hard it is separated if we don't even know what our reality is.
I have been lost between realities for so long.
And placebo is a part of that reality, so embedded in it.
Well,
How would you separate?
and it being labeled a psychedelic, because it's not. MDMA is not a psychedelic. It's an amphetamine.
Right, but
so
it has the same effect.
No.
No? Did you try it?
Lots of times. I grew up in the rave scene. I used to throw techno parties for years. I lived in Chicago and Detroit, worked in the underground music scene, and threw techno parties for a living. So I grew up, and I started when I was 14 or 15 years old, going to loud raves, dancing. We called it going to church or going to temple. It was like therapy for us. And we would take MDMA, and we would have such a close, amazing experience with other people that were doing it. It was kind of like group therapy. So
Yep.
I come from a different era where we used it recreationally, often amongst our peers, but we also learned about harm reduction and how to actually test our substances. So we knew what we were getting. We knew how potent it was, how many actual milligrams it was. So we learned through harm reduction agencies how to test our substances, and then go to church or to temple. That was
Interesting.
that was our thing, yeah.
Very cool.
So it's come full circle from throwing these electronic events and festivals and holding space in that manner to now holding space in the therapy room.
Yeah, I know.
It's come a long
And
way.
I don't know what's more therapeutical.
Yeah, exactly. Some people, I coach some people that they still go to EDM events or techno parties, and they'll tell me, they're like, I'm going to eat a little bit of MDMA or whatever, and I tell them exactly this is how you need to dose it. You need to take these vitamins, take some 5-HTPs, take these so you'll have a relatively good outcome. Hydrate. I give them all the harm reduction stuff. They go out and they come back and they tell me during our sessions, they're like, wow, I met so many friends. I feel, I have community.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it breaks down all the barriers.
Evan just got here from
Louisville, Kentucky.
Louisville, Kentucky, and he brought to Colorado tons of experience with psychedelics. We start chatting and we decided let's just record it because it's just so cool that you guys gonna enjoy it as well. Please participate, comment, like, subscribe. We're here for you. Go ahead, welcome.
Thank you for having me. This is really unexpected that I'm sitting here in a podcast with you, but I guess you have you have an eye for interesting people.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, I'll tell you what brings me here in a nutshell. I came to Colorado from Louisville, Kentucky, so I can break into the psychedelic assisted therapy world and really go out there and help people.
And you're not just a psychonaut, I believe. You're psychonaut with license, right?
Yeah. I'm an LPCC, licensed professional counselor candidate, and I'm hoping that I can find the right supervisors to really get my career started off right.
Oh, absolutely. I have actually supervisors who know psychedelics.
Finally, I've been looking for one.
But go ahead and tell me your life story. Every one of us in the psychedelic community has a cool story, like we're writing our own Bible. And here is a little Bible from Evans.
All right, okay, well, strap in. This is interesting. So as I had mentioned earlier, I came into understanding psychedelics through the underground music scene when I was very young. And, I turned it into a living. I loved holding space for people and having these electronic underground music events. And it was a very big part of my life until I had suffered a knee injury. And I had a doctor that prescribed me an absorbent amount of opiates.
Oxycodone.
Not Oxycontin at the time, but it was Percocet 10. But I think at the time I was getting prescribed 8 Percocet 10s per day.
Oh my God.
And so that's equivalent to 80 milligrams of Oxycontin per day. And after a long period of time being on those medications, I was cut off from my doctor. And then I went to the streets, and at first I was buying Oxycontin on the street, and then it was Opana, hydromorphone, and then eventually all I could find was heroin. And I started using heroin. First I started using it, sniffing it, and then eventually it led to using it intravenously. And I was the lowest low point. I could never imagine myself being there. And I went to see a doctor. And I went to this doctor to get me off of the opiate medication. And instead of necessarily getting me off the medication, what he did, and this is for about 3.5 years, he prescribed me a cocktail of other medications. So for about 3.5 years, I was prescribed, let's start with 3 8-milligram Suboxone strips, 2 to 3 2-milligram Xanax bars, 3 30-milligram instant-release Adderalls, Clonidine, Lexapro, 4-800 gabapentin, Trazodone, all this medication to get me off of the opiates I was dependent on. So after having respiratory failure twice, having my family do CPR on me, I was left with nothing. I didn't trust our mental health industry. They were taking advantage of me.
Tell me one more thing. I want to, sorry I stopped
No,
you.
no
I just
problem.
very, very interested. When you said you reached lowest of low, what does it mean? Were you able to function in society? Where did it get you?
That means being on death's doorstep, like right there, ready to.
Were you able to work?
I don't know. Oh no.
How did you provide for yourself?
I depended on family and friends for the most part, and I picked up jobs here and there, but nothing's. You can't sustain employment under that much medication.
And it was constant depression?
Oh yeah.
And I know how depression feels. I don't know about your depression. Let me tell you about mine, and then you'll tell me if it feels the same.
Sure.
To me, depression feels like a hole, like that sucks you in, and you just, instead of going up and rising, you're going down and thinking.
Yeah.
And every time you feel bad news, you feel good. Like, oh yeah, it just proves me. Like, oh yeah, I know this boss already left. Sure, of course, yes. And every time you hear good news, it's like, yeah, it's not real. It's impossible. That was me, and I was not really a functional person either.
Yeah, you fall down this with depression. You kind of fall in this shame spiral, like you can't get out of it. And it's not just it's the depression, but like for me, it was the shame of being a drug addict and letting my family down. You know, once having this fruitful career, working in the entertainment industry, enjoying life, till all of a sudden, you know, I'm inches away from dying. And this is what the pharmaceutical industry had really propagated amongst a lot of my community. They were giving incentives for the doctors to write these prescriptions. And, you know, my doctor even bragged, you know, me and my family are going on an all-paid vacation to Ireland to enjoy with the family, all paid for by the pharmaceutical lobbyists. That would
I remember
come
at
through.
one point, it was very popular to see pain clinics everywhere.
And the people I was seeing, that wasn't a pain clinic. This is the new version of the pain clinic, which is the drug rehabilitation, you know, which is that industry.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the new pain clinic, because they're very, you know, they get a lot of money from Medicaid. They get a lot of money from different services. So that's become kind of like the new pain clinic. And they'll want to keep you on Suboxone and on all these medications. Methadone and Suboxone, you know, it was developed to only have about a 6-week protocol. And now people are on Suboxone for years, even decades.
And methadone for the rest of their lives if they do not find any other way, right?
For sure.
I researched once because I've looked into, from a business perspective, to methadone clinics, and I looked and it's like, no, I don't want to participate in that. That doesn't look too good.
No, it's got dark energy around it. And so after, you know, having this distrust with the doctors and everything, being at my lowest point near death, I realized that in the state of Kentucky, the religious freedom laws are very important to the citizens there, and there was a couple ayahuasca churches at the time.
But how did you know that what is ayahuasca? Like average person, right, in a condition, let's say they're on heroin, would they know about ayahuasca?
I think they would until they really had no options left. I had no more options. It was like me. It was basically, I had been on the internet and I had seen somebody, maybe it was a story about somebody that had gotten through post-traumatic stress syndrome through ayahuasca. And I was like, well, essentially that's what I have.
You just said keywords.
Yeah.
You had no options left. But why ayahuasca should be when no options left? When ayahuasca should be maybe not your first option, but maybe second, third. It shouldn't be, I think there's worse things than ayahuasca to be no options left, right?
Right. I don't think I really, there was just this pull. There was just this like, hold on, this is different. What traditionally works is not working for me. It's killing me.
But you were reserved. I wouldn't say scared, but reserved to take it, right? For some time?
I was scared.
You were scared to take it? Why?
Because it's taken me somewhere I haven't been before. You know, and I went down there. First, I had to work with the guy that ran the place. I had to say, hey, I'm going to come off all these medications. So I slowly titrated and got my, I came off of most of my medications for the most part. I still had, was taking a little bit of diazepam or Valium so I wouldn't go into a seizure. Because if I had just stopped all the medications, I would have instantly started seizing. So I had a little bit of Valium in my system when I went down there. And I remember the first day I drank the ayahuasca. It was beautiful. It was like, wow, this is really cool. And I didn't necessarily get a lot from it. But the second day, I went through absolute hell. That's the best way I can describe it. It was absolute hell. But I remember when I was going through this hell, there was this dragon that kept appearing. And it was a scary dragon, and I didn't understand it at first. And it was appearing, and it was floating through the space, and I'm just sitting there going through the worst, throwing up, purging, like uncontrollable. It's an absolute nightmare for me. But I keep seeing this dragon. And I'll come back to the dragon because it plays a big part in this. So after that ceremony, something clicked. I could see better, I could smell better. I was not in physical withdrawal anymore. Because when I went down there, I was shaking. I was in such bad withdrawals. I was no longer in physical withdrawal. I immediately went to my doctor, probably 2 days later, and said I went off all the medications. He said, no, you can't come off of all this medication. What, are you crazy? You know, if you come off all this medication, you're going to be in the hospital. I was like, I'm done. I'm not doing it anymore. You know, I'm over it. And he was surprised. But what I had come to find out is that this doctor, you know, I realized what he was doing to me and what he was doing to even friends of mine that were seeing him, including my mother. So my mother was also seeing this doctor and getting prescribed a large amount of medications as well. And my mother passed away from heart failure from getting prescribed the 30 milligram Adderalls as a 65-year-old patient, and along with the benzos she was getting. So she had heart failure from it. So I decided to go to the people I always stayed away from, the authorities. And I went to the DEA, FBI, LMPD, licensure board, Kentucky State Police, and they launched an investigation. They found him, basically found that he was culpable to about 13 deaths. I think it was closer to 20-something in reality, but it wasn't put on paper. He ended up pleading guilty for illegally distributing narcotics with no medical purpose, or however they worded it, and he pleaded guilty and went to jail for it.
Terrible.
So
I have one question in your story. You
Sure.
said that when you took second dose of ayahuasca, you felt like you went to hell.
Mm-hmm.
But before that, you described that you were in hell, which depression, I don't know, very close to hell. I don't know, I haven't been in hell,
Yeah.
but that's how I would imagine it. What was the difference between those two hells, if any?
The visualization of actually, like, you might, when you're depressed, you might feel like you're in hell, but you can't see it. But when you have ayahuasca in your body, you can see the hell for what it is. And you can investigate.
That's scarier.
It can be really scary, but what you're actually scared of is what's already in your subconscious. So it takes a while to realize, hold on, that's me. That's not something else. That's me. The darkness I'm seeing is within.
You know, I think it's one of the psychological tricks. I don't know the name of it, but I'm using it a lot. When something happens to me, I'm trying to imagine what worse could be. How much worse can it get? And then when I'm analyzing it and reaching understanding what could be worse, something getting better from there. Because, that's it? Okay, I can handle it. Is that what it does?
It empowers you because it shows you everything that you haven't been able to see that's right in front of your face. You know, you don't see, like, a lot of times when you're depressed, you're not eating right. Well, you know, people don't realize that 90% of your serotonin is actually made within your gut biome. So if all you're eating is cheeseburgers and milkshakes, well, you're going to feel like a cheeseburger and a milkshake. You're not going to feel too good. You are what you eat in that sense. And it kind of opened up a lot of like, hold on, I'm not exercising. I'm not taking care of myself. I'm not eating right. All these things that you need to function as a well-oiled machine in this society, I was kind of lacking, and it brought a lot of that up to the surface.
Scary stuff. Everybody says that ayahuasca brings you the scariest things that you holding in your subconscious. I think it brings them, and so you're facing it, and then nothing can really scare you that much anymore. You go into the world and say, tell me.
Well, ayahuasca doesn't give you what you want. It gives you exactly what you need. And sometimes you need to be scared straight. You need to see yourself for who you are. Ayahuasca doesn't sugarcoat things.
But the reason you're not scared after the trip is because during the trip, you already tried it on and you passed it. You were able to handle it. Is that why? I'm just trying to see.
Yeah, maybe. I think it's not scary afterwards because you're like, oh, that's what ayahuasca was trying to teach me. They're like, oh, okay, that makes sense now. Like, I know why I was seeing that, or I know why I was having that reaction. Or the purging, which I thought was bad, the purging was my trauma coming out. Yes, it might have felt scary or bad at the time, but that was actually your trauma being released. And, I hear a lot of people that are like, I don't want a bad trip. Well, bad implies that it's unsafe. When it comes to the ayahuasca world, bad means that it is an unsafe setting, like we've talked about. That's bad. When I'm having a scary ceremony, it's just difficult. It's not bad. It's what I need, but it's not easy. It's difficult.
So when you decide to take ayahuasca, was it something, the way things were happening to you, is it something that you expect to happen, or it was different than you expected?
Oh, completely different. I mentioned I grew up in the electronic music industry, so I've been exposed to a lot of different psychedelics, and ayahuasca just hits differently, and in a much more spiritual way than psilocybin or MDMA or ketamine had ever had, and I will say, like, after this experience, like, I immediately rolled in school. Like, I started my undergraduate in clinical psychology, but what was still on my mind was this dragon. Where did this dragon come from, and what did it mean? Trying to make sense of this, what I thought was a horrible dragon. So that's what led me to Thailand. All places. And what led me there was this dragon resembled what is known especially up in northern Thailand, as a Naga. And it's a dragon serpent. And in front of the Buddhist temples, you have two of them, and they're kind of like Buddhist guard dogs. They keep the bad spirits out.
So it was a good dragon.
It was a good dragon, but I didn't know what it meant. And so I went to Thailand. I studied at Chiang Mai University. I studied hill tribe anthropology, mindfulness intervention, global psychology, and just Buddhism. I would teach monks English. They would teach me meditation. And I got to understand, like, hold on, this was kind of like laid out. The dragon was kind of bringing me here so I could kind of, so I could learn the tools to keep myself healthy, because it's not easy coming out of a ayahuasca ceremony in central Kentucky and finding a therapist that can help you integrate. So I had to do the integration myself, and through learning mindfulness and meditation from a Buddhist lens, I was able to really continue to do the integration work within myself. And the Thailand culture is just so conducive to that type of learning.
Yeah, I went to Thailand as well, and I spoke with Buddhist monk, and you can become Buddhist monk for just 4 months. That's the shortest time. And they all like to learn English, so they speak to you and you can ask them questions. I enjoyed it so much. I asked them all the questions. I'm like, where are you in Buddhism? Humanity came from, and where are we going? And they said, not going. We don't care where we're going and don't care where we came from. It's like,
could you imagine what a liberating feeling that is? You know, it's so far from our consciousness, but just like having no care, like the freedom you'd have from that. So that's what I learned from them, you know, is how to really how to have a little bit more control over my reaction to my emotions and have a little bit less care per se, you know. So I had those education experience, graduated with my my bachelor's in clinical psychology, but I still didn't understand ayahuasca. I knew it as as a hormona alkaloid and DMT. I just knew it as these chemicals. Okay, I didn't understand it from its cultural and spiritual perspective. I'm like, wow, these two chemicals saved my life. But it wasn't the two chemicals, I would later learn. So I decided to go. I read a great book by Dr. Joe Tafur. It's called The Fellowship of the River. Since then, we've become good friends. And he was a big inspiration for me right after COVID, traveling down to Niue Rao, Centro Espiritual in Yanchama, Peru. And I'd only planned to go for a couple months, but I ended up staying for nearly a year. So I went down to Peru scared again about jumping I'm going to the Amazon. I'm living in a little shack in the jungle, and I'm going through their protocol. And I did master plant diet. So a master plant diet is done in Shipibo lineage, where when you're on a diet of a certain plant, the shaman will connect you to that spirit of the plant, and then that spirit of the plant is now your teacher during the duration of the diet. And when you're on diet, you can't have any sugar, you can't have any salt. It's fish, plantains, rice, and a lot of people go down there to diet for long periods of time. If you're a practitioner, if you're studying to become a shaman, you have to diet master plants in the jungle for years and years. For me, I did about close to 5 or 6 months of master plant dieting, and then another 5 or 6 months working as a facilitator there. And my job was lead facilitator and facilitator trainer. So I would train facilitators that were coming in, and you know, our ceremony sizes would range from 12 to 22 people, and it was a lot of work. But I was able to, through my own healing, I had learned how to come out here to Denver, Colorado, and try to introduce the skills I've learned through my own healing to the people that need them most.
Hey, so tell me, how do you envision what's going to happen in Colorado for you? What is your vision, or what do you know about it, or what you're still researching? What's going to happen? What's going to happen next? It's a new industry, new evolving industry.
I don't know exactly what's going to happen. I think it's interesting. There's a lot of people within the ayahuasca sphere, especially the people that have some training within the indigenous lineage that are coming on, that are hoping to work in the psilocybin field. So it's way different from what I'm used to. However, I'm a little bit nervous about for instance, with what they're doing with I forgot what they called it, but now you cannot, as a licensed facilitator, you can't see people in their homes.
No, you can again.
Oh, you can again?
I think again. Yeah, they changed it so many times. A few weeks ago, you couldn't. I think now you can. There is a caveat. You have to have a second facilitator with you, and you have to record.
Okay. See, it's been going back and forth so much. So I have cautious optimism to what is going to happen. What I hope for, and what I'm doing here, and what I hope for Colorado, is they don't make these treatments out of reach for your average person. And I hope that one day some of these insurance companies can start to pick it up as well. Let's hope.
Insurance should pay for clinical psychologist or social worker for any kind of talk therapy that they pay in for cognitive behavioral therapy.
For sure.
The same way they should pay for psychedelic therapy, because when you bill into insurances, you're not putting what kind of therapy you're gonna do. So it's up to us to figure out the business plan, and that's what we do in Psychedelic. We're trying to figure out how to make it more affordable, and that means for us to charge less for the medicine and for the facilitation side of it, and make sure that people be able to get integration and certain settings with their therapists, which is perfectly legal.
Right. And I think the other thing I'm worried about is a lot of these I hope that facilitators or therapists that go into this field, that they do their own work. I mean, they need to do the work within themselves. I know with ketamine, a lot of these therapists can have experiential training. Great. But it needs to be the same way with psilocybin. And I think it needs to be more than a weekend retreat where you go try the medicine and then all of a sudden you're a psilocybin a clinical facilitator. I think you really need to understand and know the medicine a little bit better before you start serving it to people. And I just hope within the training protocol that these people have these people that are being trained have enough of an opportunity to have those experiential sessions where they do the healing on themselves.
And I think right now they have a separate path for people who are considered to be legacy healers. And maybe you can be qualified as a legacy healer, and that, I don't know exactly the process, but I think you submit it to them and they will approve your credentials if you took enough classes, did enough of facilitations, and maybe then you can only take 25 hours of Colorado ethics and laws, and then you can be a facilitator. And as you're saying about regulations for people to take medicine, number one, I disagree, because I think they cannot make people to take medicine, but they, but hopefully people understand that if that's what they do, they should probably try it themselves. Well, it makes sense.
I think it should be mandatory. I think if you were serving medicine, that like a psychedelic, a hallucinogen to somebody, as therapy, that you should also have that experience. It's so important because it's such a different reality.
While it's important, but you cannot make cardiologists to take heart medicines. Right. You cannot make other specialty doctors to take their medicine.
Right.
We're relying on people who never had experience. So with this, yes, it will be just the same thing as everywhere else, in every other industry. It's very easy to find people. It's very hard to have good people, to find good people. So at some point, there's going to be 20% of people who are good and 80% who are average. And just like everywhere, it's same thing in real estate, same thing in law, same thing in engineering, in any specific industry. But there's going to be a little bit of a it's going to be a little bit turbulent time to figure out who is this 20% good and who is this 80% that average at best.
Correct. Yeah, I agree with you. I just think that, for instance, MDMA therapy, I can see that somebody doesn't necessarily need to have an experiential training through that. I can see them being able to do the talk therapy and the work. But with integrating something like psilocybin or ayahuasca or 5-MeO-DMT or any of these tryptamines, I think it's important to really know what space they take you.
I agree with you. I just don't think government can mandate that.
No.
But I
they
think
can offer as an option.
Right,
Yeah.
right. But I think people should understand that that's going to make huge difference, and hopefully they will not go to the specialty of being facilitators if they're not planning to take the medicine themselves.
Well, and I would say for the consumers that are out there that are looking for this type of treatment, ask away, hey, what's your experience with this medicine?
Absolutely.
How long have you been sitting with it?
Yeah. How
ask
did you
those
get
questions.
here? Tell me your Bible story.
Absolutely.
How did you get there? Yeah, people need to be really comfortable in understanding that only some part of it is a psychedelic. And psychedelic doesn't cost that much. Psilocybin mushrooms, they easy to grow at home. They're fairly cheap. So what costs is to be with the right person and know what you're doing. I love this story about George Washington. You remember that famous story? We had it now when I was civil engineer, worked for civil engineering surveying company, and it said that George Washington sent bill. He was a surveyor to somebody, $100 bill, and they said, "Can you put detailed bill together? Can you detail it for me?" And he said, "Sure," itemized. Putting steak in the ground, $1. Nowhere to put steak, $99. So having mushroom, it's
Same
it's
thing.
important, but it's still $1. You still need to get that $99. You not necessarily have to have good facilitator. You not necessarily have to have a good psychologist. Maybe you will get there by reading books. Maybe you will get there from your friends. Maybe you get from your life experience. Maybe. But certainly, just like in every other profession, it's good to have somebody who knows what they're doing next to you, especially when everybody's saying that psychedelic experiences is like biggest experience of your lifetime. So if you're ready for your biggest experience of your lifetime, don't you want to have a biggest professional you can get to hold your hand?
Well, and that falls into it too. It can be a very powerful experience, and it can be scary to jump into that. But the practitioners that have been in this field for a while, they're not going to send you off on a high dose journey the first time. They're going to dip your toes in it.
Yeah.
They're going to give you a smaller dose. They're going to let you experience like what it's going to feel like first. They're not going to just send you off to the moon. And the ethical ones, they're going to let you know exactly the dosage. And even more, maybe the species, but they're going to let you know the dosage that they do every time. They're gonna bring you into that aspect. Like, okay, so we've done however many milligrams of psilocybin last time. This time, do you want to move up, or would you prefer lowering your dose? Was it too intense for you? So having that candid discussion and letting your client in to the know with the dosage and what they're taking is huge.
Even with cannabis, and we've been in cannabis market for over 10 years. When people ask me, what can you tell me, how should I get into consuming cannabis? I said, usually if you edibles, take 2.5 milligrams. You're probably not going to feel anything. Next day you can double, but at least you will know that you're not going to overdose yourself. Because if you overdose yourself, you will hate it, you will never come back to it. Just not good for your body, not good for anything.
Absolutely. And that's how the shamans did it in the Amazon. We called it an intro dose. It was a very small amount. Some people had really strong experiences off that, but for the most part, it was a little bit benign, but it gave us a little bit of a control. And it also eased people into the process. I've been a Bufo facilitator for 2 years, so Bufo 5-MeO DMT, and I see all these videos on the internet of people foaming at the mouth and having these horrible experiences. Well, those practitioners are irresponsible. We don't need to send people off on large heroic doses. They were sending people off. There's a lot of videos and stuff of people getting sent off on 100 milligram Bufo sessions where that client might have only needed 20. And there's a way to do this psychedelic work in a very safe, deliberate manner without causing more harm. So even though that you might be scared to jump into the journey, knowing that you're taking a small controlled dose the first time to see what it's like might make it a little bit easier for people that are fearful of the treatment.
And I'm actually very happy that at the end of rulemaking, they added one more provisions that people do not have to stay at the healing center more than 1 hour if they take in, I believe it's under 50 or I'm not sure
I saw
exactly.
they had it kind of.
So they did
weird.
open door just slightly for microdosing. Of course, I don't even think that people need to stay full hour, but it's better than 3 hours they had before.
I saw that for sure.
So an hour, this is something that you can combine with psychotherapy. So if you schedule psychotherapy with somebody in a regulated space, they can microdose at the same time as doing therapy. That's how you can keep them busy for an hour. And, it gives you an ability to come up with a good business model. So
Absolutely.
So I'm glad they did that.
Yeah. I mean, keeping somebody for 3 hours for a 0.01 dose of mushrooms seems a little bit excessive.
Yeah. So at some point, I think they'll lose this even more. But I'm glad they've got to this point, because when they had for longest time 3 hours, I was like, people don't. What are you going to do with this person if they came and feel nothing? An hour later, still nothing. 2 hours later, still nothing. 3 hours later, let me go.
Well, what's really great about Colorado is some of the people that they have working within this legislation, including people like Sean McAllister and those folk, they're true medicine people. They really respect this medicine, and I appreciate the work like him and others have been doing into making sure that these rules actually, that there's reason for them, and that they're justified. And I'm really happy that those lawyers are on our team.
So tell me how it feels that we are right now in the very inception of this absolutely new market. Don't you feel like it's all up to us? I mean, not all up to us, but a lot up to us. Like we have responsibility along with excitement to make it right for everybody.
I mean, we are in this. Essentially, we're stewards to this new form of treatment. But I think it's exciting and everything. But I think we need to tamper down the excitement a little bit, and people need to understand that these are just tools. They're not necessarily going to be a cure for what you're going for or what you're trying to achieve, but it might give you a little bit more insight on what you need to do to achieve that. I think there has been a lot of. I think psychedelics have been played up a whole lot as like this treatment that's going to cure everybody of everything from PTSD, addiction, whatever. But it's just a tool. It's just something that we can use to work on what we're suffering from. It's not necessarily a cure. So I don't want to give anybody the false idea that like if you go do one session of psilocybin that you're going to erase 25 years of PTSD and trauma. It takes a lot of work, and oftentimes when it comes to psychedelics, at least in the ayahuasca world, we're doing several ceremonies, in a period of time. So you can't get a lot of times you can't get it all done in one ceremony. You need it repeatedly. You need to do it a few times a week over a period of time to really get down in the dirt to where all that trauma is hiding in your subconscious.
Well, people did the same thing with cannabis. Cannabis was a miracle drug that cures you from just about anything, including COVID, including cold, flu, anything. But, that's where I disagree with you. I don't want to lower my excitement.
Yeah.
For people like you told me about yourself, that you were not functional and you were in hell, there is a hope.
There is hope.
And I don't want to lower this excitement. I think it's going to be good because we're going to make it good. We're going to try very hard to make it right.
I hope so. I hope this is all done right. And, it's the Wild West of psychedelics out here in Colorado.
Фразой «Дикий Запад». PTSD development.
So I don't really know what the future holds, but I think if we all follow true and we do this in an ethically sound way, I think we'll all be okay, and we'll all be able to make a fruitful living in this at the same time, helping people overcome very, very difficult traumas.
And on that note, I would like to ask you guys to please help us to participate. Help us participate in this renaissance, psychedelic renaissance, and this new hope for all of us. Please like us, please subscribe to this channel, please put comments, please find everybody who listed in this notes below the YouTube video, and you'll be able to find Almadelic, and you'll be able to find Evan. Let's build community together. Thank you so much. We're ready for 2025. Happy New Year again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was good.
That was good.
See, now we know about each other. Because Evan said, let's just talk so we will know a little bit about each other. I said, let's just do it on the video.
Now you know.
Now you know.
Yeah.
And knowing is half the battle.
So it's-
Always half the battle.
G.I. Joe!